guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new IDontWorkHereLady content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled A Thank You to the Man Who Defended Me at Walmart. I'll start out by explaining briefly that we've just moved to the area we're living in. I'm extremely new to the area, and it makes me a little more nervous than normal. I am legally deaf. That doesn't mean I can't hear anything at all, but you definitely gotta speak slowly and very loud, especially with this pandemic and these masks. I can lip read really well, but with the masks, I'm at a loss unfortunately. I was wandering the local Walmart. I am dressed in a bright yellow shirt, and a pair of yoga pants, and I'm wearing my DOT-approved motorcycle helmet with the visor down instead of a mask. Masks are mandatory. But they never seem to mind letting me in as long as I keep my visor down while I shop. That makes me even more deaf than usual. My helmet is bright white. Not hard to tell I don't work there. There is no mistaking that I don't work at Walmart. I have my hearing aids in, but they tend to have a wide V effect with 3 separate mics, and I don't hear people behind me very well, if at all. It just mutes background noise, so I can focus on what's in front of me. Even with the hearing aids, I have serious difficulty hearing people with my helmet on. I clearly have a few items in my hands, sandwich meats and bread. I am following the arrows they put down, and am squatting down, looking for a can of Campbell's mushroom soup. Suddenly there is a very aggressive repeated smack against my shoulder. I actually screamed, because I hadn't seen her come up behind me and was not expecting anyone in this pandemic to be close enough to actually touch me. She scared the absolute hell out of me. I twisted, and landed hard on my butt, partially landing on, and squishing my bread. I can suddenly see this woman, and she is wearing her mask, gesturing wildly. I can hear the murmur of her voice, but with the visor down, and my helmet on, I can't understand her properly. My hearing aids are pressed against the sides of the padding of my helmet and are moderately useless with the visor down. She doesn't react that I've fallen, just gestures wildly, and her voice is rising. I finally make out what I think is, "Hair is the matte fuel?" It's weird the way your brain fills in blanks, when you can't hear someone, or read their lips. I just shake my head. I say, "I don't know." I know my response is muffled by my helmet, because she keeps at it. While on my ass, I sign wildly, "I don't know. I don't know," all the while shrugging my shoulders and shaking my head hard. Unfortunately to her, maybe it looks like I'm saluting her, still on the ground. She says in an extremely loud voice, "If I can hear you and I'm wearing my danged helmet with the visor down, you're speaking extremely loudly. Where is the cat food?" There is a man behind her wearing a mask, who was socially distancing until she raised her voice. I see him approach quickly. He doesn't work there either, and I can hear him literally yell at her, "Again, if I can hear you, you are loud. Hey lady, don't touch her. What's wrong with you?" This attracts the attention of nearby people, and thankfully 2 people who actually work there. I see the blue shirts coming, and I just skirt back from the lady as she turns away from me, and starts bickering with the man. I can't hear most of it, but I can definitely see it escalating. I stand up, step back further, and brush myself off. I pick up my sandwich meats, but the bread is a lost cause. One employee clearly tries to de-escalate the situation, and she is just shrill and gesturing madly. I can no longer hear the man, he's not raising his voice anymore. One of the staff, standing beside me now, I turn my face to her, and I think she's asking me if I'm okay. I shrug and throw off a few signs, "I'm deaf, sorry. Don't know her." And I point aggressively at the lady who scared me. The man is explaining everything that happened to the other staff member. The second employee seems to understand that I'm deaf, and just nods. She motions for me to step back further from the argument, and I do, and she puts herself between myself and the small knot of people. There's a brief heated discussion, the employee shaking his head, some of which I can hear, and some of which I can't, as the man speaks to the other staff. I can hear her briefly again, something about ever again. The lady is then actually escorted from the store, her cart left behind, by one staff member. I was super surprised by that. When all is said and done, it seems he saw the whole thing. Things quiet down quickly. The customer who intervened, points at me, and flashes the "okay" symbol most people know, pointer finger to thumb, 3 fingers out. I smiled and nodded. I signed and loudly said thank you, before the Walmart employee led me back to the area to get new bread. I flashed the man the peace sign before I left, and signed thank you again before being led away. The next story is titled Moochers Parked a Trailer Against Our Fence, Stole Utilities, Trespassed, and Harassed Us. This is my first time posting here. I'm not known for my brevity. This happened in the mid to late 1980s, so I don't remember all of the details fully. I will do my best to get the details right as well as I can remember. My family moved from the suburbs in California to a rural area in a southern state. We bought a 30-plus acre property with a house for a decent price out in the middle of nowhere. The roads weren't named, the roads weren't paved. No mail delivery, no trash pickup, no city water, no city sewage, etc. We had a landline and electricity. We had a well system set up for water. The system uses our electricity and our setup is old and uses a lot of power. My father was in federal law enforcement and was still trying to find his place and work up a rapport with the local police, so he didn't want to start things off by complaining or ruffling feathers. The area is one of those small town places where Yankees were treated with suspicion, and they considered California Yankee territory. Our home was outside of the city's jurisdiction, and since there were no named roads and the 911 address system had not been set up yet, it was difficult to explain where we were if we needed to call the police. I can't remember exactly how long we'd been there, but I think it had been maybe a month or two. Our house is on a branch out a long winding road and is the dead end. Generally only people who are completely lost ever make it out here. The road enters straight in through our front gate, and there is a large circular driveway that used to have a 300 years old oak tree in the middle. The gate is more than 200 feet from our house. The yard was divided into 5 parts at that time. One part to the right of the front gate, as you enter the property, was a Christmas tree patch. Then there was the main yard with the house. The house was surrounded by chain link fence and had a small front gate with a walkway and a larger side gate leading to the barnyard. There was the barnyard with a workshop and barn, a chicken yard with a pond, and 2 back fields separated by a fence down the middle. To get to our front door you had to enter through the main front gate, go over 200 feet to the chain link fence, go up some short steps, open the chain link gate, then go at least 10 feet, probably more, to more steps onto the porch and then to the door. It's also in the middle of a forest owned by timber companies. The trees surround the perimeter of the entire property. The timber company sometimes does controlled burns to get rid of weeds and such, so they have to leave a fire break between their trees and property of other people. Although, this didn't stop them from setting our barn on fire several times. The fire break is large enough to drive a vehicle into between trees and fence. So one day early in the morning in summer I heard banging at the front door. My room was at the front of the house, but the other 2 bedrooms, including my parents', was at the back of the house. We didn't have a doorbell. I looked out my window and saw a man at the door holding a very long extension cord extending all the way out beyond my front gate. He was shuffling impatiently and kept banging on the door. I saw him try to open it, but it was locked. I went and got my father and followed him to the door to see what was going on. Dad opened the door and looked out, somewhat annoyed. I think it was a weekend and he worked 60-plus-hour weeks and needed his sleep. The guy looked a little puzzled and asked about Joe, previous owner, being there. My father said no, he moved. I'm going to heretofore refer to the man as M, entitled Man. M. Oh, well, I need to hook up my extension cord in the house. Dad. Excuse me? M. Yeah, we need power for our trailer. Dad. Looks out and sees a trailer in the firebreak parked right up against our fence, also spots a hose coming from the trailer and hooking up to one of our hose bibs for the front field. Who are you? M. I can't remember what he said. Dad. I didn't give you permission to connect to my water and power. M. Oh, it's fine, we do this every summer. Joe said we're always welcome. Dad. I'm not Joe. He sold the house to us and he never said anything about you or any arrangements. I don't know you and I want you to leave. Now. M. Argued in vain about why he should get to hook to our utilities. Dad explained he wasn't comfortable with complete strangers parked against our fence. Dude claimed it was public land so he could park there, which was a lie. It was private property. We later found out it was actually on our property, but the fence was in the wrong place, but it would have been timber company's land. Ultimately, he refused to move his trailer. Dad. Let me walk you out of the yard. Escorted man to the front gate, shut it behind him, chained it, then turned off water at hose bib, disconnected hose, rolled it up, and passed it over the fence to M. I don't want you coming onto our property again. We don't know you. M. You're not very neighborly. You need to learn about Southern hospitality. As an aside, I will interject that the reason my dad picked a place out in the woods was to be away from people and have some privacy. I had followed him out and we walked back in. I looked back to see the guy and his wife and kid glaring at us. We went inside and locked the doors, front and back. We also went through and made sure to lock all of the windows. Later that day I went to wash my hands in the sink and water started sputtering and wouldn't come out properly. From the kitchen window I could hear one of the pumps, the one that fills our cistern, running like crazy. I unlocked the back door and walked out to the shed with the well and cistern and saw that the float lever was down and the pump was trying to refill it. I went back in, locked the door, and went and told my dad that our cistern was low and the water wasn't working. He checked it too and then went out the front door where we could see that M's hose was in our yard and hooked back up to our hose bib. He sighed and went back out to the shed and shut off the water to the front yard. We then waited for the cistern to fill enough for us to use it. We figured that M would get the message and go away. Nope. Next thing we know there is a loud angry banging on our front door. I looked out and saw M all red-faced and seething. I got Dad's attention again and he went to the door with me. Dad unlocks and opens front door. M screams the water isn't working. Dad sternly, I noticed. I told you not to connect to our utilities and you did so anyways. You drained our cistern. I also told you to leave and locked my gate. You are trespassing. Leave now. M. You've already left us without power. What are we supposed to do without water? Dad. Leave. Stepped out and escorted him to the gate again, opened it for him, let him out, closed it behind him and chained it. You are not welcome here. Do not set foot on my property again. I can't remember if it was that day or the next day. It's been so long I can't remember how long this lasted, but I think it was a week. But the phone started ringing off the hook and we kept having people asking for M or his wife. Now, we had an unlisted phone number. It was unlisted for a reason. We have no idea how they got our number. When these people called we just told them they had the wrong number. Around afternoon M's wife, we'll call her EU for entitled woman, came knocking on the door. I saw it was a lady so I went to the window and asked her what she wanted. She demanded that I open the door to let her use the phone. If she had asked nicely, I might have asked my parents if it was okay and let her in, but she was rude so I was defensive. I essentially told her to pound sand. She started banging on the window and screaming profanities at me. This got my mom's attention. Mom. Don't you use that kind of language at my house. Mom doesn't like when people swear. EU. I need to use the phone and collect my messages. Mom. What messages? EU. We gave people the number so they can call us here. Dad. Who walked in on the conversation at the window? Who gave you the number? EU. Refused to answer that but demanded we give her messages and let her inside. Mom. We are not your answering service and I am certainly not letting you inside my house. Now get off our property and do not come back. EU. Angrily shouted profanities about what horrible people we were and how we were going to hell. I snuck outside via the back door and followed her at a distance to make sure she left and chained the gate behind her, and I think I stuck my tongue out at them. At some point we went into town to visit some elderly friends of ours that had somewhat adopted us when we moved there. We were gone a few hours. When we returned, I got out and unchained the gate so Dad could drive through, then shut the gate and chained it again, then skipped all the way to the house trying to race the vehicle. I was also the remote control for the TV back then. Parents said what station to turn it to and I would turn the dial. Before we could go into the house, we heard some angry shouting. M and EU undid the chain and were storming toward us screaming profanities and generally cursing us. Dad. What is your problem? M. You locked your doors. EU. And your windows. We couldn't get inside. Mom and Dad. Of course we did. Mom. That was the point. We don't want you inside our house. We don't want you here at all. M. You are terrible hosts. Dad. You are not invited here. You are not welcome here. Now leave. Again he escorted them to the front gate. This time he had a shiny new padlock that we'd grabbed at the store. He put it on and told them in no uncertain terms that they were not allowed to trespass on our property for any reason again. If they were unhappy with the accommodations or lack thereof, they were free to leave. A few days later, early in the morning as my father was getting ready to leave for work, we heard pounding on the door again. I alerted him as he was putting on his gun holster, for work, and said it was M and EU again. He clipped his badge onto his belt where it would be visible and went to the door. Being the pest that I was, I opened the door and raspberried them as they screamed and yelled about how we were horrible people, we ruined their vacation, and that next year we better get our act together or there would be hell to pay. At this point, I stepped aside so my father could step out with his service weapon and badge visible. They both suddenly got quiet. Dad, how did you get into my yard with a locked gate? M and EU stared in silence. Me, I think they climbed over the gate. It's sagging. They had actually messed up the gate by climbing over it to trespass. Dad, you are trespassing. You are going to leave my property now. To me, get the key. Me, ran off and grabbed the key to the padlock. I'll put them out. I then ran circles around them, sticking my tongue out and pissing them off, but they were too afraid to say much to me. I zipped ahead of them, unlocked the gate, dragged it open, and told them to get out and stay out. I may have stuck my thumbs in my ears and wiggled my fingers while saying neener neener neener. I slammed the gate behind them and padlocked the chain again. They angrily left, but not before banging their trailer into our gate, flipping me off, and laying on the horn for a couple minutes before they finally left. That weekend my dad had me help him collect branches, old fencing material. He made sure I didn't touch the barbed wire, but he picked it up, etc., and showed me how to build a barricade, just the way he learned in the army. Did I mention he was also a Vietnam veteran? We built it a few feet from the road so it would block anyone from trying to drive in and park at the firebreak. The other side had a power pole in the way so no one could get a vehicle through there. The next summer we were awoken to angry horn honking, pounding on the door, and shouting. I looked out to see a truck with a trailer in our driveway. The gate, which had still been padlocked and chained, was open. EU was in the passenger seat hitting the horn, and M was at the door. I went to get my father and told him the jerks with the trailer were back and they somehow opened our gate. He got up and went to the door. Before he could even speak, M was shouting at him. M, there's a bunch of branches and stuff piled up near the road. Dad, so? M, we can't get in to park our trailer. Dad, good. M, you won't think that when I burn your ducking house down. Dad, in a low, quiet tone that used to scare the crap out of people, are you threatening a law enforcement agent? I don't remember the response, but he followed with, it would be a shame if I had to call my friend, Sheriff Turner, to have you arrested. By this point he had developed a very good rapport with the police to the point they said they would be willing to hold someone still while he beat them up and they would swear the person fell down the stairs. M, duck you. Dad, that's nice, now get off my property and don't ever come back or I will have you arrested. While the conversation was happening, I got some paper and pencil and wrote down the license plate hash of the truck and trailer. No, I don't still have it. I handed it to my father and said that we could give that to the police. M angrily got in his truck, pounded on the horn a few times, and drove off in a huff. We never saw him again. We found he'd cut the chain on our gate to get in. Dad called the sheriff and gave him a heads up about what happened and gave out the license plate numbers and description of the vehicles just in case there were any problems in the future. They may or may not have been pulled over and ticketed in just about every town in the county. The next story is titled Heavy Story. If you look for wholesome content, please scroll past it. I'm neither sure if this is the place to post it, nor if I should do so in general, but I just can't keep it in anymore. I truly hope I will not get in any way recognized, but at this point I find it unlikely enough to be willing to share this story here. And if it does come back to bite me, then, well, maybe it should. The thing happened in early 1990s. The relevant historical background to this is that Poland haven't really left the communist bloc just yet. First free elections happened in 1989, but the process of escaping Russian influence, basically only doing what Moscow or their minions told them to, took a while, and at the time of the story the police wasn't necessarily used to doing its job properly. One of such poorly handled cases was the abuse of my next-door neighbor's daughter. I will spare you most details. Just know that the worst thing you can imagine happening to a young girl in such scenario did in fact happen many, many times. They were horrible, horrible people and I hated them with all my being. I can't stress that enough. To the story. A couple years later, after I have already moved away, I was visiting my family, and since I was a little early, 6 a.m., I stopped at a gas station I once worked at to chat with my old pals and wait for the sun to get a little higher. We were sitting in a little nook behind the counter, and lo and behold, who would come in if not the aforementioned neighbors, N. He pointed at something and went back out to fuel their car. She approached the counter, noticed me and snarked. N. You're back here? I guess your studies didn't go that well? Me. Actually, I did. N. Yes, sure, whatever. How much did he go for? Colleague. 100. N. I'm asking him. Me. I didn't come back to work, I'm just visiting. N. Stop lying to me, you're just ashamed that you failed in life. Now come and inflate our tires. Now. Unlike you, we don't have all day to sit and chat. I was so pissed. I legitimately hated them already, but this encounter, after so much time of being away from them, just completely took me off balance. I told my friends it's okay, I'll just do it. I went with her. I inflated one side correctly. I overinflated the other side so much I thought the tire was going to explode in my face then and there. They weren't even paying attention to me. The second I was done, and before I could even realize what I have just done, they took off. They crashed a few kilometers down the road. They both died. I have never heard of any investigation reaching the station. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.